According to the 2022 Data Breach Investigations Report, 82% of breaches involve the human element. Yet most security awareness and training programs focus on compliance requirements, not the risk humans pose to your organization. Living Security is the leader in human risk management. This new approach transforms human risk into proactive defense by quantifying human risk. By understanding your riskiest and most vigilant users and activities, you can engage these segments of your workforce with relevant training, communications, and policies to truly change their behaviors. If your goal is to finally change your workforce's behavior, visit securityweekly.com/living security to learn more today. The working world is open like never before, collaborating constantly across countless platforms at the intersection of communications, people, and data. The solution? Work Protected. Work Protected enables you with a security solution that connects all the dots. One partner, integrated, intelligent, and intuitive. Mimecast. Work Protected with intelligent email and collaboration security only from Mimecast. Visit securityweekly.com/Mimecast to learn more. Managing and protecting the world's grueling number of endpoints, enabling Tanium's customers to see, control, and protect every endpoint everywhere. Tanium's mission is to provide certainty in uncertain times with the industry's only converged endpoint management. Trusted by the U.S. military and the majority of the Fortune 100, today, Tanium helps manage and protect nearly 30 million endpoints. Tanium, the power of certainty. Visit securityweekly.com/Tanium to learn more. Welcome back to Business Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Jason Albuquerque and Tyler Robinson. You can now find us on Instagram. I'm not on Instagram, but I guess we are. Follow us for highlight reels, giveaway announcements, and more at Sec Weekly. All right, now that we got the social media stuff out of the way, let's dig into articles for the year.
Wait a minute, I want to know why you don't have an Insta. Come on.
Oh, come on. I'm too old for this stuff, dude. Like, come on. I can barely keep up with LinkedIn and Twitter. I do not have a Facebook account. I am not going Instagram.
Well, you haven't even talked about Mastodon or TikTok.
Right?
No, I guess it was funny because I saw, who was it? Mudge or somebody going to Mastodon. There was this like big announcement. He left Twitter and he's on Mastodon. And I'm like, okay, now I got to go learn another one. Like, yeah, eventually, I guess. All right. So we've been off for a few weeks. We haven't covered leadership articles. So I had a lot to choose from. And you know me, Jason, like I don't like the prediction stuff. I don't like the resolution stuff, etc. But There was one article from Forbes on New Year's resolutions that I thought was very valid in covering on this, because when I see stuff from Forbes, like there's certain things about these Forbes articles that are different than your normal like security news coverage post. So we'll get to that one in a second. But I started with, the CISO role is broken, and I love the subtitle, and I blame compliance. And I'm like, well, yeah, like we've been talking about this for how long? Like, anyways, so it was interesting because he sets up, the discussion around the transformational CISO and moving away from a compliance into more. And I think what he hit on was the one consequence should be that GRC programs, governance, risk, and compliance, should focus more on the G and the R instead of the C, right? And this has been one of the big challenges with the GRC, right? It was always little G, little R, big C, because it was always about compliance. Gartner renames the space enterprise risk management, but it's all the little G, little R, big C companies that are still sitting in the enterprise risk management side, and they're not focused enough on the G or the R. And that's where I thought, the article got really interesting is that shift to risk. Right? Because we talk about it a lot on this show. It is understanding business risk. We just talked about pieces of it with Tim. Like, you got to understand where your risks are coming from. Then you can build the right security program.
I mean, Matt, again, title is important for these things. I don't feel the CISO role is broken. I feel the support of the business is broken for the CISO.
Right.
Right? Because, we just talked about different scenarios where now Tim has support of the business, he can get stuff done. Was it like that 10 years ago? Was it like that 5 years ago?
Was it
I
like
don't know,
that
maybe
2
not.
years ago?
2
2
years
years
ago.
and a month ago?
And that's what I'm saying, right? So now he has support of the business, but that was a global incident. Most organizations are still under that mantra of the business has to continue to move forward and we're not going to allow you to put the brakes on, right? So that business risk conversation gets trampled.
Yep.
That's a hard
So-
one because you don't want to have a breach in order to get to that point.
I know.
But you see all the companies that have gotten mature very, very quickly and gotten to that place where they have the buy-in, they've got the budget, they've got the upper board support, and often those come from a breach. That's a horrible scenario to have to come back from.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly it. So to retitle this, I think it should be the CISO influence is broken. Right? Not the CISO role, the CISO influence to the business is broken. That's what we need to be talking about. We need to be holding a little bit higher power within business to make influential decisions on when brakes need to be put on in programs so we reduce the risk.
They're having to multitask, right?
Great job over time becoming risk management folks, right? We've been talking about this.
Oh, yeah.
Either become a risk management professional or you're going to report to one.
Yeah.
Right? So I think we've been doing a better and better job communicating risk upstream. I don't think leaders are doing a good job listening.
Yeah.
And getting that mission very clear and concise. So, right, like they're having to multitask and switch their goals in order to meet the business demand, the compliance, like you said, the big G there. And that doesn't always align with a good security oriented mission. And as a CISO, like you've got to get that top level priority first in order to get the rest of the mission right.
Right.
And that can't be
Tim
compliance.
And Tim talked about it in the previous segment, right? He held up a release for a month. 2+ years ago, he would have gotten a lot of flack for it. After post-breach, people are like, a whole different discussion. Right. Oh, yeah.
Totally bulldozed for that, right?
Yeah.
You had the sales team coming down, the chief revenue officer coming down, the chief financial officer coming down on them and saying, no thanks, we're going forward, right? Yeah. That's what I see happening in business too often.
Yeah.
Now, one of the other things I pulled out of this article too was they go into hiring the right type of CISO, right? And they talk about you need a security professional with, a transformational record and an unconventional record and, looking for those who spent careers leading on the leading edge and not purely operational. Now, what I took out of that is we've all been paying attention to the job market. That's unicorn hunting.
Right.
That's unicorn hunting. It's our jobs to farm unicorns. Let's build these professionals. Let's build this talent, right? Because if you go try to hunt a unicorn right now, you're probably not going to find one. And this is where we have to change our mindset. We need to be building these skills, not hunting them.
Yep.
I
That's
better
article
see
number
a t-shirt.
6.
Yeah,
Article
there better be a
number 6.
T-shirt for Unicorn Farmer. I want to see Jason, the Unicorn Farmer.
Unicorn farmer. There you go.
But too often we just kind of make these statements that, we're just going to go out and find these people.
Right.
Why don't we build the community? So we have lots of these folks and lots of this talent out there.
Yeah, and that kind of ties in a little bit to article number 2, right? Which is must know insights around the evolution of CISO role, and it talks about the CISO plus role, right? Again, it's kind of that unicorn. It's like you're the CISO and the CIO, and you're taking on development and this, that, and the other thing. Like those people don't really exist. Like there might be a handful of them, but this is not like normal. Skill sets that's out there.
No, I'm not going to my local, security supermarket and getting one of these. It's not happening, right? I can't you can't find it. We have to be building this. I say it over and over again. We talk about it on the show over and over again. Put some skin in the game and help build this talent pool. Help build the pipeline. We as professionals are obligated to do this.
And build yourself.
If you want it, build it.
I'm just curious if this is our next Say Easy, Do Hard segment.
Building talent? Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Article number 3, 5 cybersecurity resolutions that CISOs can actually keep in 2023. So my only resolution story of the year, it will be because I don't believe in them. But I thought Forbes did something really interesting. Like, if there's things you can actually do to better yourself as a CISO, this isn't about, what the resolutions are for technology and all the stuff you see out there. These are things that make a lot of sense, right? Like stay up to date on trends and technologies. Like as a CISO in the role, you have to do this. It's almost not like a resolution. It's like a requirement of the job, right? I mean, you have to stay on top of this stuff, right?
So it's all the things we should be doing that we're not. Well, hey, you know what? Kind of like exercise. So that's why we put that in the resolution.
It's a good list to have in front of you. Yeah, bring it back up.
Right.
Now, you know what? And again, it's me just being nitpicky, Jay. I like order, right? Order of priority. And I would take the one that was listed last, nurture your important internal partnerships, and put that first. That would be my number one, because everything else is built off of that. If you have great relationships with your partners, you're going to stay up on trends and technologies, right? If you have great relationship with your internal folks, you're going to be able to build a great business strategy around your security program, right? Same thing with culture, right? If you have a great business partner, they can help you with assessments, but you have to nurture those relationships. That is number one. That is the most important. You have to be great at that.
And then would you put culture number 2?
Yes. Yes, because culture is extremely important to gain that trust. To have the trust across the C-suite, with the board of directors, to be honest with you, all the way down to your damn interns. If they trust the security team, they're going to do the right thing.
And to make security a priority, you've got to have that culture there.
100%.
And then I'm just reordering. Like then it's probably trends and technologies to broaden in the scope of your strategy, right? Because you've got to understand kind of what's trending and tracking to make sure you're putting the right strategies in place to address it. And then number 4 is the one like schedule recurring security assessments. Like, okay. I mean, look, Tim did talk about he's got a full-time red team now, and you know, not everybody can do this one, so that's why I guess I'd put that one last.
This is kind of like drink water and get good sleep as part of your New Year's resolutions. You know, water, sleep, exercise. That's kind of life-sustaining.
Yeah.
There we go. So your internal partnerships one ties into article number 4, the role of the BISO. Now we've talked about this role before. I worked with Deb when I was at Cyber Risk Alliance. She did a lot of work on our research side. And she interviewed a few people around this BISO role. And I pulled this article in because I thought it was really interesting to think about aspects of the role. And there was a specific area around BISOs need to understand business-specific risks, right? That's why I think the BISO role is a very interesting role, right? Because, you know, we've had this debate, like, is the BISO in the security team? Is it in the business unit team? But understanding business-specific risks, again, Tim mentioned this, like, understand where your crown jewels are, right? What are the most important assets I need to protect? It ties back into our asset management conversation on the pre-record last week. Like, that's an important part of this role. Not every CISO has the ability to understand all that. These BISOs in large organizations are the ones that they have to rely on to really understand where those critical assets are, to help identify those risks, to work through this, right? And I thought that was just a really interesting part of the article, as well as by understanding that, you can actually stop potentially risky practices because you're like, whoa, wait a minute. We're trying to do that with this data. Like maybe we shouldn't do that, right? That's a great kind of description for this kind of yin and yang with the BISO.
You know, and I mean, over the course of the last couple of years, we've been coining this BISO role. But I think the function is the most important piece. Whether you have security liaisons within the business, you have folks who are embedded in the business and they're on your team. I think there's multiple ways to skin this cat, as long as there's either a direct line or a dotted line up to your security leadership, right? So that way that intel is coming back so you can make really good enterprise decisions. As long as that's happening, that communication's there and that trust is there, this can be successful, right? The BISO is kind of the formalized side of that. I just don't want, you know, mid-market companies, emerging enterprises to say, I have to go get BISOs now. No, you don't. Create an equivalent role, right? You don't have to go out there and like, this is enterprise level where they can afford to have BISOs across the entire business. Model that, but scale it down. Have liaisons out there in the business that you can work with. Have a scaled down model because it's going to be successful. You have to understand the business, and one person, one CISO in a security team can't get embedded in every single process of the business.
Yeah, right? Less about the title and more about the culture you're building and the function
That's
itself.
That's it. It's great that we're coining this and we're maturing it and we're making a structure around it. That's awesome. That's us moving forward. I just don't want to negate the fact that there are smaller companies out there going, I'm never going to be able to afford a BISO or multiple BISOs. Create the model.
And that's the one point I wanted to debate a little bit, because she's got a section in here that says in small companies, CISOs are the BISOs. Are they?
No.
Or should they be? Because I'm not, to your point, right? You still need business liaisons. And so I don't know that the CISO actually is the BISO in a small company. I think the CISO works with business liaisons, whether you call them BISOs or business liaisons or whatever. I'm not sure that the CISO becomes the BISO, even in a small company. I still think there's too much disconnect to the business.
No. A CISO will never have the bandwidth to be able to drive into every single process, every procedure within a business unit. Never mind all the business units, right? That's why you have those business units and those professionals there. So if you're a smaller organization and you can't afford what it takes to have a salary to have 5 BISOs across your business, work with this is all about having those partnerships. Work with those business leaders, work with that C-suite and say, can each one of you identify someone who's interested in cybersecurity, who can work with us to be the liaison? They understand the business, they understand how you operate, and they help us identify risk.
Yeah, you get the CISO involved at that level, and you're really cutting yourself off at the knees. You're taking away their time and bandwidth for strategy and the strategic edge that the business needs, and getting them down in the weeds where they should have people doing that. So that liaison, and not to mention the fact that often you're not going to get the same optics or perception. People interact with upper, CISO level differently than they would a trusted liaison or a trusted business partner that then reports that back. That has to be a matured culture and business relationship that's not going to come from that power dynamic all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in a small business and we don't have an official CISO role, but we have a security leader, and the security leader works across the different business units for guidance and making sure we're doing the right things. They're not playing the BISO role. I'm playing the BISO from a product perspective, and engineering's playing it from an engineering perspective. And so I think it is more of a liaison role that comes out of the business, not necessarily the CISO themselves. Yeah.
But again, the concept and the structure of this, super important.
Right.
You have to have a professional who's, like I said, either dotted line or directly reporting into the CISO to bring that intel of the business unit back, right?
Yep.
So that way you can action risk, identify risk, bring the intel back, and be able to make positive change.
Yep. I love this next article. Are cyber attacks at risk of becoming uninsurable? I think, Jason, you would probably say we're already there. But this is coming from Zurich Insurance Group CEO comments. And I'm like, hello, we've been talking about this for over almost a year, if not over a year, Jason. Like the writing on the wall has been here for a while. Why everybody now all of a sudden is freaking out in December 2022 because somebody finally said it publicly from the insurance side shouldn't be a big surprise, but I guess it is.
Yeah. I mean, there's big changes afoot. There's no doubt about it, right? And I don't know if I would go across in a broad stroke and say everything is uninsurable. What I'll tell you is that many businesses will be uninsurable because of their security posture. That's what I will tell you. They're not mature enough. They haven't put the right, standards in programs in place, and they will be uninsurable. And until they can stand the test of time and come in there and say, listen, this is what I did to build my program. Here's how I'm securing my organization. Until they can prove it, they'll be uninsurable. I don't think the entirety of the market goes away. They're going to still insure. You may have to pay some hefty premiums, but they're going to be saying no a lot.
There,
They're going to be saying no a lot.
there's some interesting dichotomies here with this because insurance is not going to go away. They've made a fortune on this, and up until the last year or so, it's the first year they've not turned a profit. Now they've had to readjust their strategy. Now that also lends itself to interesting dichotomy from the procurement side, because many of these places are required to have cyber insurance in order to do the procurement for larger companies or contracts that are already enforced. And so what you end up with is an uninsured policy that has to be insured that is already within contract that cannot be insured. So either people are going to shift, which I think is great because it shifts our security model, or we're going to have a rebranding of something outside of cyber insurance. And I think there's going to be some lower end cyber insurance companies that are going to rebrand a product that is going to fulfill that procurement spot in the interim, because that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen the cases already of rejections around certain policy items, right? We see new startups in the space trying to create a more programmatic, look at the overall security program to price policies, et cetera. As long as you have the big players in the space, they're going to find a way to make money. And you know what happens when an insurance claim comes in, right? The first thing that happens is it gets declined. And then it goes through a series of checks to see if it gets approved, right? And so they're going to look at any way out to continue to protect the premiums, because insurance is highly profitable. But when you start losing money, you're going to look at changes to the program. Sure. And this has been out there for a while, folks. I'm going
to equate it to the natural disaster side. You have places that have hurricanes every year where things get annihilated every year. They still can get insurance, right? You have natural disasters that you can basically predict in certain areas of the world, and they're still able to get insurance.
I think people
know things are going to happen, right? So I don't see it fully going away, but they're going to be cranking down on it big time.
I think people are going to have to read their policies a lot better too, and ensure that they're getting the right cyber insurance, because I think there's going to be a switch really quickly of people not paying out once details of a breach come out and there's negligence with inside of that, or things are misrepresented with inside of what the application had verified. And there's going to be a lot of verification. It's not just going to be a questionnaire. You're going to have to verify your security, and that's going to be an assessment or some script running, some dashboard tools. There's going to be a lot of companies coming out to kind of handle that verification side of this.
And if you don't follow the appropriate notification process, involve the right people, it's going to become a claim you can't claim. And, a lot of people get these cyber insurance just thrown into their overall general policy without a lot of specifics. It's just it's a rider in there that just gets thrown in without much detail, and nobody looks at it.
They're looking at it from a compliance perspective. It allows them to continue to do business.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? That's what it is. That's what it becomes, They don't read the policy. They don't know what they're insured for. And then when the stuff hits the fan, they got nothing. Right? That's the risk, because they're just looking at it as a check in the box experience to be compliant, so that way they can do business.
Compliance. I blame compliance.
All compliance fault.
Yeah. Next article, Winning the Talent War, Keys to Success. I think this is a Checkpoint article because at the end it talks about Checkpoint. But I thought they did a pretty good job of laying out ways to fix some of the hiring practices that we have talked about on this show. And so I brought it in, even though I think it's a sponsored article, only because I thought they did a really good job of laying this out. And we've talked about these things like accurate job descriptions and some of the things you need to do, right? You're not going to find a unicorn, right? You can't have 15 years of experience with Kubernetes and this, that, and the other thing and all this other stuff. They just don't exist, right? And so it starts with getting the right job description, working with HR, and understanding what the real requirements of the job are going to be. And that includes education, certifications, et cetera. That's where this all starts. And if we do a better job of writing job descriptions, we'll do a better job of attracting talent.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit more than accurate job description. I think it's retooling the way we hire. That's got to be part of it, right? Because you mentioned, to hire for this role, do you need a master's degree in cybersecurity? Probably not.
Probably
but all
not.
that's allowing you to do is throw a bunch of resumes in the trash as they come in, right? And it's like, maybe you're losing out on some incredible talent by doing that, and it's a shame. So, I think we have to retool the way we hire along with accurate job descriptions.
Yeah, I mean, I'd even say a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity. Like, there's not that many bachelor's science degree programs out there in cybersecurity. In a bachelor's of science or a BA in certain industries may or may not even be required depending on what you're hiring for. Now, look, there's a lot of stories out there of folks that don't have their degrees. Ben Carr, Sean Malloy, I can rattle off more, that don't have their degrees that are superstars in this space, right?
Absolutely.
It is not a precursor.
Nope. And, it's I say this a lot, hire on attitude and aptitude. They have the right attitude and the aptitude to learn. You can teach them anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Number 5 on this goes to Jason. Yeah, I was just going to say, farming them unicorns. You offer that advanced learning opportunity and groom up the areas of deficiency. If you've got the right attitude and aptitude, you can train a lot of the technical things. In fact, you can train even some of the personal, business and behavioral things into that. Without 100%. The mindset, though, or the attitude side of this, then and the continual learning process, you're not going to be able to do those things. But you need to offer them if they're right.
Got it.
Right. But remember what Jim Ralph told us a little over a year ago. Employees don't want to be retained. They want to be developed. So the summary in there talks about retention, but it's not about retention. It's about development. That's how you're developing the next level of leaders that are going to fill these gaps across other organizations, maybe your own organization over time. I've told my team from day one, eventually I'm gone. Who's going to step up and fill that position when I leave? Right? We're not 30 and outers anymore, right? I mean, no one's going to stay in one place for 30 years. How do you develop the talent to take over when you as the leader decide to leave, right? That's how you got to think about your employees and why you want to develop them so they can step up and fill your vacancy when you decide to go do something else.
And when they leave, right? Like that's how you build a good business network that is long-standing over 30 years. If you want to have a long-standing network to be able to tap into and build relationships across multiple verticals, make sure you're allowing your people to get developed and leave. If you do that well, you'll have a business relationship there forever. If you don't, that's a bad day for you.
Yep.
Right. And one of the bullets in here was attractive compensation, right? And the note I put under here is I put in bold print, not only salary. Mm-hmm. It's not just salary.
Right.
It's culture. It's learning opportunities. It's what you talked about, succession planning, having a seat at the table. All of that I consider compensation. It's not monetary compensation.
Right.
Some of it's good for my career. Some of it's good for my damn soul.
Yeah.
Being in a place where I want to do that, right?
It could be equity, having skin in the game, being part of the organization, right? Like those are all part of that compensation discussion.
And some of this ties into the one that was up top, which is tell the company's story well.
Right.
Because if you tell the company's story well, you're talking about things like compensation and culture and all of those other added compensation pieces, right? That aren't necessarily
and mission, which is also like one of the things that most people seem to be lacking in day-to-day job is finding meaning in their life, and that means contributing to part of a team and a mission that is telling the company's story. Like monetary, like we know what people should get paid. Like there's a minimum baseline salary, you know what that is. That's fine. Monetarily, most people don't care as long as you've done well to get to that base level. Everything else on top of that is just attracting good talent.
Yeah. Yep. And as a candidate, now you give me the opportunity to make a good decision for myself, because I can sit back and say, you want to know what? This job, I may be making a little bit more money. I'm willing to just be a number, right? And make a bad decision for myself because I want more money. Or I'll take that cut because this is an awesome culture. I have the opportunity to grow within this business. And 5 years from now, I'll outpace the salary that I have today, right?
Exactly right. Yep.
Some people want to do that. Some people want to actually do, and I think it's a smart move to do that, to be honest with you. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, you have to look at all the factors, which kind of ties into this last article on the power of positive leadership, because it talks about these things around culture, retention rates, the things that matter, right? People want to have value. They want to provide a value back, right? They want to be invested in where they're working. And if you don't have a leadership structure that is positive, that promotes all of these things, you're going to have a very difficult time keeping your employees, keeping them happy, which means you're going to be in this constant flux of trying to constantly hire and backfill for people that leave because you have a negative leadership or culture in the organization.
Yeah. And I mean, it's at different levels that businesses need to make sure they're paying attention to this, right? It's the mission of the company. Make sure you're articulating the mission and the values of the company. So that way, the folks who are working for that organization know what they're doing know the impact they're making on the daily, right? Yeah. Know where they're making a difference. How are they making a difference to clients? How are they making a difference to partners and customers and in the world for that matter?
Yeah.
How are they making a difference? Then it's at the individual leadership level, right? You have to be a good, positive leader who can support that mission up top and support all your folks in achieving that mission. So it's a layered approach, and every layer of leadership within that organization has to be on that same page. They have to be working in harmony, because at the end of the day, it's the staff who are going to suffer if not, right?
Yeah. And
once you have a culture like that, where it's pervasive all the way down, you're building leaders. You're building leaders naturally within your organization. It becomes embedded in the DNA of the culture.
Yes. It's a very positive way to run a company. I've seen it the other way, which is why I'm not there, right? These are things. We all want to have a purpose in life. If our values are aligned, we're going to be invested to stay and thrive. And that's across the board. It's the way I've always felt. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next. Oh, wait, no. We'll see you in 2 weeks on Business Security. Next week is a holiday week.